Hi Sandeep, welcome to Brands, Brews and Banter. I'm so thankful of you giving your Sunday morning away to able to be come to talk to me. Uh, I've been chasing you for a while. First of all, why are you so busy?
Yeah, hi, Harinder. Thank you for inviting me on this podcast and thank you for your patience. It's been crazy busy for the last 1 month for me. Had some personal stuff that I had to take care of, which I didn't know was going to land on my shoulders. But it did, solved it. Now here we are.
So great, thank you so much for doing this. So one thing we have in common, we were just discussing right before this, is that we are both girl dads, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see that pattern with a lot of marketing folks like so Hitesh and bunch of other folks. Like we all connect on being girl dads. So has becoming a parent changed you as a marketer? Like as a professional or anything else?
Not really, no. I mean, as far as fundamentals go, they don't really change post pregnancy and starting a family, right?
Yeah,
The only thing that has changed is the demands on my time.
yeah.
And that is something that you have to build frameworks and systems around to master. Fortunately, I had already sort of embarked on the journey of building systems to sort of streamline my workflow prior to our pregnancy. Uh, that has helped me a lot. But having said that, it's always a surprise, right? This is the first time I'm doing this, as you are as well. So every day is a surprise, and you have to work your way around it.
Man. I think girls are the best. There's no like I
There's no
sometimes tell
question.
my wife that I sometimes don't know that I had all of these sets of emotions inside me, and
Yeah.
somehow this one tiny human being has kind of unlocked everything. So I just feel there's a constant kind of discovery that you keep doing with yourself when you're
It's
kind of raising a baby.
it's something that now that you mention it, it's something that I have also seen. There's this movie, it's a Tamil movie called Kaidi.
Hmm.
I don't know if you have watched it. It became famous after all the South movies started becoming hits. But there is, I mean, it's an action thriller out and out. But the point is, the story thread revolves around this one convict who has been released from prison and is traveling overnight to meet his daughter, whom he hasn't seen for 10 years.
Wow.
Like she was born the day he was incarcerated, she was born and he has not been able to get in touch with her for 10 years. So at the end of this movie, after all the the things in the movie, the storyline and all has evolved, they meet. And one thing, like he has been this stoic action hero throughout the entire story. Like he had been stabbed, he has been shot at, he has been kicked in the head, never cried, never did anything but except fight back. And then she meets him at the end, and she just asks him, where were you? And why didn't you come to me for 10 years? And this guy breaks down and cries. Right? I'd seen Kaide before I became a dad. And
Hmm.
the climax was, it was heart wrenching for me, but that was about it.
Hmm.
Now, when I see that scene, I cry. And because and I don't know what switch got flipped in between, but you
Yeah.
can take a guess.
Yeah, I think it's empathy. I think
Yeah.
that's the suddenly you're able to put yourself in the protagonist's shoes, and yeah, it's beautiful. I feel the empathy part of me has been dialed up 10x definitely after becoming
And
a dad. But
that's really something that marketers ought to have, right? The empathy part of it. And I keep writing about it, I keep talking about it.
mm,
But sometimes it's difficult to actually be in the consumer's mindset all the time for all marketers. It's almost like a doctor, right? I'm not saying comparing the work that doctors do to what we marketers do, far be it from me. But
don't-
what I wanted to lay down the point was sometimes there's this tension between the analytical business as usual side of things that we have to handle as marketers versus putting yourself in the consumer's mindset and trying to make that entire experience great for them, right? And
yeah,
there is this constant healthy tension between the two because if you try to personalize everything for every single consumer, you're not going to be able to build a business. But if you're going to try and just do everything from a business point of view, look at everything from a business point of view, you're soon going to run yourself down to the ground. So where do we as marketers find that empathy is something that is interesting, is something that I've been trying to teach, trying to learn for quite a long time now. Not sure I found the answer yet, but a good balance is always critical, I feel.
mm. No, I agree to this. So, tell me about David. Tell me about David and Who. Like, I'm really curious. It's something you've recently started to help brands 10x their growth and do a bunch of other things. But just tell me about the needs. Tell me about the genesis of this. Like, why did you feel there was a need, and how did you go about validating that?
Right. The validation part of it was a 15-year journey. David and Who was born out of a clear understanding that, uh, yeah, this entire brand building and brand strategy industry is a lot fucked up these uh, pardon the French, but it is what it is, right? You have got scenarios where you have McKinsey paying BCG level analytical thinking on one side, which looks purely at numbers and tries to build brands off of that. I'm not dissing those companies. I'm just saying there is a way of thinking that's been ingrained into a lot of marketers, founders, GCs, brand builders. And on the other side of the equation, you have the creative agencies. Um, who approach every single problem with the mindset of let me find the creative solution first and then backfit a strategy on top of it. I personally, you know, had almost all the big agencies in India pitch for two of my brands when I was the marketing director at Swiggy. 2 days, there were some 10 agencies, back to back pitching sessions. Before the pitch happened, 3 weeks ago, I had briefed them, gave them the entire rundown of the brands that I wanted to grow, and told them to come back and meet me anytime during the course of the 2 weeks to learn more about the brand, answer any questions. And my only ask was, and mine and my boss's ask at that time was, look, these are two very young brands, less than 2 years in the industry. Treat them as babies. Think of how you would grow those brands first. We don't really need creative ideas from you. It's just a pitch. We know you're all extremely creative. Just tell us the strategy. How would you grow it? How would you grow these two? To a man, all the pitches came back with great creative ideas, and the strategy part of it looked extremely backdated. It was almost as if they, out of the 2 weeks, they took 1.5 to nearly 2 weeks, except perhaps a couple of days or so, thinking of the creative ideas. And then the day before the pitch, the strategist was given the task, okay, fine, now this is the creative idea. Show us the strategy that will lead to this idea. And that's how
Agree.
it was. It's how the system, ecosystem has been set up. And since I was on the client side for so long, I mean, in fact, for the bulk of my career, I've seen and experienced this firsthand. So now, David and Who came from this thought that, look, can we go to a brand, sit down, have a nice chat and conversation and say, if you don't have that mindset where you're willing to take risks to grow, whether you're a startup or a big MNC, somebody is going to come and disrupt you, which means you need to have a robust strategy and you a brand strategy, and you need to have the creative ideas and support. So far, everyone knows what it is, right? I mean, a lot of us have read about David and Goliath, the story, and how that worked out. A lot of PCs and founders have read Malcolm Gladwell, so they all like to talk about it. But how to actually bring it to life is a question that nobody really knows the answer to. And that validation for me took place over a period of 15 years and 4 or 5 years when I had been actually consulting as a brand consultant. So on the other side of the table. Therefore, we decided, look, there was a gap in the market where we could bring the kind of analytical thinking that being McKinsey, BCG, etc. does, the creative thinking that a lot of creative agencies in India can do, and if we can merge them in the middle, then that's the best value, best bang for buck that we can provide our clients. And this will also help them take on the incumbents in the market or create that kind of mindset where they constantly, sort of disrupt themselves and grow. That's why David and Who came.
Hmm. Oh, it's lovely, and I can't tell you how much of a plus one I want to say about the problem statement, right? I think the problem statement is a hair on fire statement. I have been on the receiving end of a lot of pitches, and when we've had pitches, uh, sometimes what you expect in terms of the strategic output to it and the creative rendition of that strategic output, there's a big gap. And so I feel that sometimes the incentives are misaligned, like which means that a lot of creatives are also incentivized in two ways, right? Of course, there's the traditional incentive of that you'll get an award and you'll be an award-winning creative and everything else. But there's also the top-down that hey, this is what we need to pitch and this is what we need to build. and
Yeah,
hence this is what you will offer. And
yeah,
if it will be a low cost solution versus if it will be a high cost, high production solution, you'll always kind of over index on the second. So I've had a lot of senior agency creatives tell me this, that sometimes it's just maximization of the overall billing we can do with the client. And it happens the same way for consulting, it happens the same way for legal, so it's happening the same way for advertising. So do you agree to
that's
this?
it. I do to a large extent, which is why the biggest offering that we have is a single touch workshop session. It takes about a month, month and a half, sometimes 2 months to solve, where we try to come up with the strategic business narrative for the brand. Just basically a fancy way of saying we try to figure out who the target consumers are and what the positioning needs to be. Once we fix that, then we can
Hmm.
either let go or work with the client on a long-term engagement basis to try and figure out how best to bring it to life. And even in the
Hmm.
long-term engagement basis, as you said, we don't optimize for agency billing, and we try to make sure that most of the work either gets done with the client in-house or whatever agency that the client has. We don't take a commission, we don't take a cut on that. We just focus on providing that large amount of upfront value. And there's this other point which you mentioned about awards winning, right? I've written about this, and this is actually a pet peeve of mine because I honestly want there to be a national study of all the marketing campaigns in India that have won awards, whether D&D, Century, Jazz, I don't care. All marketing campaigns over the last, say, decade, 10-year period that have won awards, and what the actual revenue and revenue of the brand has been. Let's not even get into profitability and all that. But
Hmm.
what the revenue of the brand has been pre and post the campaign. And I want that
Yeah.
analysis to be done. And at a campaign level, not from a point of view where you say, hey, this guy stopped advertising and therefore started losing business. That we all know.
Hmm.
I mean, much
Fair.
better minds than us, like Byron Sharp, have actually done the study. Um,
Hmm.
uh, Binet and Field actually have also done the study that shows, yeah, you stop advertising, you start losing your business over a period of time. I'm not talking about that. Just the campaigns that have won awards, pre and post
Hmm.
revenue collection, and not the case studies that have been submitted to Cannes or DND by at least by the agencies,
Yeah.
but by an independent third party. And I really want to look at the results, right? I have a hypothesis. I think at least close to
Hmm.
80% of those campaigns have never worked in building business.
Can't
Number could
agree
be
more.
more, but I think it's 80%. And
Yeah.
I have seen this in my life.
Hmm.
PNG, Philippines, back in the day, had run a very, very famous, I'm using the word famous, not significant or impactful, famous campaign called hashtag sorry not sorry. It became extremely famous across the world when Sheryl Sandberg reposted it on her Facebook page saying, I stand behind you. And this was the time she had written her book Lean. So it was such an amazing, let's say, moment of glory for the brand. The brand was Pantene, and the country was Philippines. Lots of awards given, lots of careers made. The people who were in charge of that campaign really grew, right? Business time. And it also
Hmm.
affected me because I was also part of the team that was handling another brand, Head and Shoulders in Philippines at the time. A lot of the media money that would have gone to my brand in the second half of the year was taken to shoot the video, right?
Yeah.
So I went media dark for 1.5 months or so, 6 weeks.
Hmm.
Uh, Pantene business tank. At least it was on a downfall. It didn't arrest the downfall. The downfall continued. So in the end, what was the business impact? Nothing. We all had to scramble to fix things in the first half of the next fiscal year. Yes, you
Absolutely.
get known, you get well known as marketers. So at some point, you have to decide: are you going to be in here for the awards? Are you going to be in here for business and then awards? What are you going to optimize for? And it's a hard question because a lot of our compensation is often fixed to awards because awards are a very clear, immediate positive signal that you can give the industry. Even if you're not going to be working with the brand and the company that you are today, and you're going to
Hmm.
look out for something in, as your next opportunity. An award is something that it's a very tangible thing that you can perform. The rest is little difficult to measure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it comes back to incentives, and And I was having a conversation with another marketing colleague, and we were talking about Mondelez, right? We are talking about like all of these great films that they put out about AI applications for shopkeepers, and and then crypto for 5 star, and like there's all of these edge cases that they keep making films for, and they have a super team at Ogilvy and everything else. But I know this intimately, that the ads that actually work for them are the ones which have the lowest common denominator, which will be their BTL advertising, which will be like other kinds of stuff, right? So they'll have these edge ads which will come out, which only the marketing and advertising community will look at, and they'll be happy with each other. Like they'll pat on each other's back. Marketers are happy, advertisers are happy. There's pretty much no media money being put on it. Nobody's going to watch a crypto film on mainstream media, right? So
Yeah.
I just feel that they are kind of two different worlds, right? There's one world where you know what works, and you will push money behind what works, but you also do like a cream on top kind of a campaign that, hey, I also need awards, so I'm going to put like 5% of my money here. It's going to have no media, but at least it'll look good on my appraisal form or whatever else. I just think a lot of that is also happening, like not only from the advertiser end but also from the marketer end, because somebody has to green light all of these initiatives.
Absolutely. The the head of brand for a very well-known brand in India. I'm not going to take the category name because he would.
You have to take the name, Sandeep. There's no.
It's in the payments industry in India.
Okay,
It's a
okay, we'll
huge
stop.
player in the payment industry in India. A couple of years ago, he had approached me, and we were having this conversation for a job offer.
Yeah.
One of the points that was discussed was we need to win an award for this,
Mm-hmm.
right? A branding award, a marketing award, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not a brand that was seen as sexy or glamorous. If you were to look at the equity of rating a brand I love, that probably would have been high, but a brand I've heard of would have been a little bit of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
We had this interesting conversation, and at the moment this was mentioned, I realized this could be a opportunity that can create more heartache than not, because anyone who like, and that's how a lot of marketers are hardwired, because
Mm-hmm.
as you said, let's see, keep 5% of the money aside from awards.
Mm-hmm.
That incentivizes you in a different way. So what I keep, the framework that I use to see if marketing can actually help a business is connect and convince, right? Connect is a way for you to reach out and touch the heartstrings of your consumers. It's more of a brand building exercise centered around the key positioning of your brand. Whereas convince is your day-to-day workhorses, your 15 seconders, your performance ads, your discount call outs, anything that you do sustainably over a period of time to bring in revenue. And you need both. You need convince to convert consumers, get them to pay you, and you need that money to reinvest into building your brand, the connect part of it. Problem happens when priorities get skewed. When you have an IPO coming up, you tend to spend more money on the convince part of stuff because you need to show revenue coming. When you have just launched, again convince, because it's a question of survival. People spend all the money on performance ads and discount call outs to get more app downloads or to get more people to increase their MAUs, and they neglect building a brand. When your Series B funding has come through, when things have started to get onto a roll, your PMF has
Mm-hmm.
been proven. Now you start thinking, okay, I want to, as a founder, now I want to become a little bit glamorous. Let me get, one of those advertisers and marketers who would come in and help glamorize my brand, become famous at scale, right? And that's where people start reinvesting more money on Connect, which is where the awards become important, which is where, okay, let's get some red carpet visits at a few award shows. Let's get on to Shark Tank. And all sorts of these things start becoming important at that time. So my concern with this entire industry and my frustration with this entire industry for a long time has been no one is seeking to find that balance of connect and convince. So over a period of time, right, everyone wants to become the next big brand within 5 years.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to become Fevicol, have the kind of brand recall that Fevicol and Amul has in 5 years. Fevicol and Amul took fucking 15, 20 years to get to where they are.
Yeah.
And when you start losing sight of that perspective, You either start investing more on getting awards, or you invest more on performance marketing alone. That's where the problem is.
Mm. I'm sure in this current mandate, you would be speaking to a lot of founders, right? Like founders in seed stage, A or B, or wherever they are, right? And helping them kind of craft their narrative. Tell me some frustrating founder conversations, because like I've had the opportunity to help a couple of startups out earlier in food tech and ed tech,
Yeah.
and I see that founders, especially who don't have strong marketing leaders already hired, who are slightly early in their journey, tend to do a lot of backseat driving. Like
Mm.
so there's a lot of कि इसको viral कर दो, तन्मय को ले लेते हैं. There's a
Yeah.
lot of there's a lot of that. So just talk me through some of these experiences that you've had with, say, somebody who's a late 20s founder, who's kind of super well funded, but at the core is a IIT educated coder. So tell me some of those conversations.
Actually, it's less the background and more the mindset.
Hmm.
I have spoken to founders across the board, founders who've not completed their education, founders who are, IIT, IIM, uh, who would assume to be really, really smart people,
Hmm.
um, founders who were sales leaders in other organizations and have started their company today. I have specific people who I was thinking of, and there are like everything in between these sectors. There are two main kinds of problems that I've seen. The first is when the founder truly, honestly believes he or she has got marketing down, right? Like, यार मैं तुम्हें hire इसलिए कर रहा हूँ because I don't have time. Had I the time, I could have done your job.
Hmm.
That's one mindset. That's a very dangerous mindset because most of the time, if you truly believe you have marketing down pat, then you don't. And I had a founder who would sit and change the text on the copy that I had written for a few of the perf ads, um,
Wow.
right? And I was supposed to be doing marketing for them. The point was then, okay, if you think you are a better copywriter, for instance, which you could be, but given the quality of the copy that before and after, it didn't seem to me that way. But anyway, that's a personal call. But the point was not that. The point was the mindset problem. You have gotten someone in, you are delegating the responsibility. And if
Hmm.
you're going to micromanage because you truly believe you are a better marketer, then that's going to create issues. Not simply because you may not be as good a marketer as you think you are. That's subjective, right? There's no science to these things. But
Yeah.
more, but because for every minute that you take out of your schedule to rewrite the copy, your your opportunity cost is quite high as a founder. You ought to have been working on raising funding. You ought to have been working on customer experience. You ought to have been working on solving production issues. But you're not. You're sitting at home writing copy. So that's one mindset issue. The second mindset issue is, and this I've seen specifically amongst engineers turned founders, that they truly believe they can distill this down to a science, an Excel sheet play, right? And the danger there is that you get shunted a lot more to the left side of things, where performance marketing is becomes your holy grail because of two reasons.
Hmm.
One is you can easily control all the variables, and two is you can see measurable results in a very short period of time, which you can then take back to your investors. The other bit, we started this conversation talking about customer empathy, talking about how it would be amazing for you as a marketer to feel what your consumer feels and then try and translate that back to your
Hmm.
business. That is subjective. You can't really Excel sheet the fuck out of it. And
Agree.
therefore, the second mindset founders tend to ignore it completely and focus on only what they can see and control and measure. So these are the two mindset problems that I see, especially with very early stage founders. Over a period of time, most of these founders either bring in people, or VCs force them to bring in people who are more experienced in the business side of things and therefore understand the nuances, or they themselves learn the difference between, okay, this is something that I need to delegate. Some people really truly become great marketers in this journey. And some people understand, look, I've got other skill sets. Marketing is not something that I want to spend time learning. Let me get somebody in to do that job and let them run with it. right? So over a period of time, some people get to that level of mindset change as well. But in the beginning, these are two major problems that I have seen.
Tell me another thing, Sandeep. Now that kind of we're talking of the early stage kind of syndrome, I see a lot of, and I think this has been a macro trend through the last 3 to 5 years, especially. There are a lot of marketers who were fundamentally trained in CPG have then kind of moved on to internet companies. And I was having a conversation with like somebody super senior
Yeah.
whose company has done an IPO and he's kind of been there. So been there, done that, senior marketer.
Mm.
Now the thing was, he's like a lot of CPG folks will struggle at internet companies. I was like, why? So I was like, these are people who've kind of grown up in institutions. They've got the best marketing training, better marketing talent, at least historically went to CPG companies, and that's how kind of they trained and cut their teeth. So he kind of distilled it through Batman Dark Knight, right? He said like, one is the person who merely adopts the dark, and one is person who's kind of born in the dark. So
Born
it's
in
like
the
one is a person adopting digital, and one
Yeah.
is a person truly born in digital. So like they will fundamentally be different people. And then of course a more candid take was that if you take a typical CPG marketer who knows how to build a brand, but you tell them that their wife has started a cupcake business and they
Hmm.
need to sell 100 cupcake boxes in the society, like
Yeah.
I'm willing to say that 98 out of 100 of them will struggle.
Yeah.
Like जब तक the other guy will जब तक these guys will start writing a brand concept and kind of figuring out what they should do and make a packaging and all of those things, the born in digital guy would have kind of created 3 landing pages, done 5 experiments, and kind of gone through half the stock.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting take, right? I agree to it in some parts, but I disagree also in some parts. What's your take?
Yeah, no, I mean, as a CPG trained marketer, I should be offended. But no, what he is saying has large chance of truth, but not completely true, to your point. So here's what I believe. Um, I started in CPG with P&G back in 2011. Uh, at that time, when we used to present in, initiatives or present marketing campaigns, there used to be 4 slides at the end of the deck. It would be a 150 200 slide deck, 4 slides at the end of the deck that said digital, right? And digital was just a banner ad, a Facebook ad,
Yeah.
and two variations of it. And we said we would do it. The most creative work that I've done in digital at that time, when we were launching Head and Shoulders male sub line of shampoos in the Philippines, was to say, look, we are going to take our media money and invest it more on putting these stuff up on ESPN betting sites and sports sites, because that's where men are, not in the prime time TV watching. That was the most creative digital decision that I had taken,
it's
right? And
it's cute.
I know it's so it's a function of the environment in which you are trained and brought up in. And it did not significantly change for 5, 6 years or so. Now Unilever has an e-commerce division. It has a head, and there's someone who's solely meant to drive products across e-commerce platforms. P&G has something similar. Back then they didn't. And that's how we were trained. A lot of us were trained. And if you look at the age, right, these people have become old, like me, have grown to a stage where they're no longer going to be accepted as freshers at a digital company, right? So we are supposed to be in decision making levels, and we honestly were not trained to think digital first. Let's put that to one side. The flip side of this stage, 2015-16 in India, when startups were taking off, there was a lot of money on the table. A lot of engineers were hired from college and put into marketing roles in the startups that were suddenly flushed with money. CACs across the industry were low. In India, internet had caught on over the last 5 years, but the internet marketing economy had not really caught on. Digital marketing was still new. So everyone cut their teeth learning from actual experience and running ads, making mistakes, optimizing ads, and so on and so forth. So, but everything was performance oriented, right? Your company would have a feature or a benefit. You plaster it in different words on different Facebook ad sets. You would figure out, okay, run all these ads, see which ones convert more, and the kind of demographics of the people who are coming to the app as a result of these ads, and those are our target consumers. Whereas the classically trained marketers were thinking, okay, let's first think what the brand stands for. What does this product do? And therefore, who could be the consumers who might have a need for it? Those are our target consumers. So right from trying the method in which you understood your target consumers, everything was different. And these engineers spend a lot of money which was freely available at that time, made mistakes, learned, and grew over a period of time. And then they got into senior roles. Then they started hiring more marketers underneath them, juniors again like them from their colleges, their own juniors in most cases, trained them in the marketing that they knew, which was performance marketing primarily, right? You, as you said, those who were born into the dark. And then
Hmm.
these second layer of marketers grew in the industry and in the ecosystem. And in 2024, now we have a clash of philosophy. You've got a lot of these classically trained marketers who talk about consumer first thinking. And you have a lot of these born in the dark marketers. By the way, no disrespect to them, but they are the ones who have actually grown a lot of the brands that we use regularly today: Ola, Uber, Swiggy, Zomato, and so on and so forth. So a lot of
Hmm.
these marketers grew up and have come to a position where they both are at the same level now, and they both have trained a set of marketers underneath them who think like they do. But now they have a
Hmm.
clash. Now the CPG folks can't really, as you said, sell cupcakes because they have to first sit and sit down and draft a questionnaire around, okay, what is the brand purpose of this cupcake? You've got a lot of marketers on the other side who say, I need at least 5 crores for this because I need to run multiple campaigns. I need to test and learn which one sells more. I need to be able to understand which area will these cupcakes sell more, and I'll quickly sell. Within the month, I'll finish out your inventory, but I'm going to burn 2 to 3 crores at the very minimum doing it. Uh, my issue is with both these kinds of thinking, right? My issue is with people who just think theory, can't do practice, and people who just practice and don't know how best to approach a problem from fundamental first principles. Um, to me, someone like, say, Justin Welch, for instance, who has actually talked about how to identify a problem by talking to consumers first, then create a simple landing page with an offer that serves this set of consumers, the one question that distilled out from all your conversations, price it at a reasonable point, plus, say, plus 10%, and learn and test and learn over a period of time. These are the people, these are the new breed of thinkers and marketers that I am hopeful about, because I believe that these people will actually represent the best of both worlds. Because see, at the end of the day, Bane was born in darkness, yes, but he was defeated. And Batman, the first, I would say, in that movie, the first version of Batman who was born in the light and tried to adopt darkness, he was also defeated. In the
Yeah.
end, someone who had seen both, the second version of Batman who had seen both the darkness and the light, is the one who actually ended up saving the day and giving Gotham, right? So that's what I believe. And you need to find that middle path, and saying, my way is better than yours is just going to be an endless debate.
No, I love that, and I love the analogy also that you took in. Um, so I'll ask you one question, right? 10 years ago, for somebody looking to start out in marketing, their dream role was to land a assistant brand manager role at a Unilever or equivalent, right? Today, somebody looking to build in marketing, their dream role is to be a brand manager at Cred,
Yeah.
right? And that has dramatically changed, right? The more people that I speak to, that's getting validated again and again. So, do you think traditional FMCG firms have kind of lost pace with the speed at which marketing is changing? So there's both sides of the argument, right? Some say that the basics will remain the same. Uh, some say that no, things are rapidly changing, and by the time somebody adopts digital, uh, the fundamentals have changed, right? The half life of marketing knowledge is about 2.5, 3 years. So the rate of change is absolutely phenomenal, and that is reflecting in the aspirations which budding marketeers have with the kind of work they want to do, the kind of companies they want to join, the kind of tools they want to use, and so on. So is there truth to this?
There is a large amount of truth to this. So it all comes back to the David mindset. FMCG companies were always out of sync with market reality, unfortunately. It's just that since they had no real clear competition, uh, they managed to move things along at their own pace without being, disrupted too much. But the moment, say, a dollar shaving club came onto the scene. Uh, I'm not talking about Amazon and Flipkart and the service providers. I'm just talking about the brands. Solar Shaving Club came onto the scene. Correct came onto the scene. Somebody like let's say Mama Earth came onto the scene. FMCG companies suddenly realized they had nothing to fight back with. Reckitt the UK global headquarters where I work, the floor below mine was the floor where they were trying to work on e-commerce. And for the longest time, people were literally shouting, "Where is my Dollar Shaving Club? Dollar Shave Club?" Right? They couldn't figure out how to do it. I mean, it was all the playbook was right in front of them, but they couldn't replicate it. And it was the global headquarters. It had the CEO's blessings. There was funding available. They couldn't do it. What did they end up finally doing? Investing money into Bombay Shaving Club and trying to co-opt them into their venture firm, which I think was smart, by the way. Because at some point they realized कि भाई हमसे नहीं हो पाएगा, so let's not waste money and time in trying to do the impossible, and instead go out and partner with people who are doing it, right? Grow that instead of trying to grow in-house. So it's a smart decision by the way. But the truth is this: FMCG companies are not bureaucratically structured to move as fast as their nimble counterparts can, and that is the David mindset.
So, Sandeep, we were talking about how FMCG companies are not kind of innovating or not kind of experimenting at the rate at which marketing is changing. So we feel that a lot of the talent which kind of comes in from FMCG companies.
Yeah.
So I was speaking to a founder, and the feeling that I got is a lot of senior folks who come in after a decade and a half, 2 decades of experience from CPG companies. They tend to come with the answer,
Hmm.
which a lot of founders find very disconcerting. A lot of people in internet companies find very disconcerting. So just tell me a little bit more. You've already expanded on a bit of it, but a lot of
Yeah.
folks who would be listening to this would be trying to make a career in either internet companies or FMCG companies or both. So what should be mental models for people either making the switch or kind of starting their careers?
Right. It's interesting, and see, from my experience, the conversation needs to happen way before you, as a CPG marketer, are hired into an internet. There are three things that you need to clarify with the founder, right? First and foremost, the point which you made, Harinder, about and which your friend made, that a lot of the, let's say, trained senior marketers, it's not just a CPG thing in some cases, it's just people who have been either in this industry or some other industry and have at least put in the time and become senior. They are being hired to a large extent because the founders think they have the answers, right? So all these conversations happen, start off usually by saying, "Hey, look, I know you've built this brand, right? I need that experience. I need you to come in and show us the direction." So first and foremost, clarify the level to which uh, you, as the person who's going to join this new startup company, are going to have relevant experience that the founder can immediately take on day one and run with, instead of you having to figure things out. Clarify that. What's going to be the level to which you believe I have the ability to make a brand for you as is. The second thing that you need to do as a CPG marketer, if you're getting into a company, is to also have a very hard look at yourself, because a lot of the in a lot of instances, trained classical CPG marketers who have worked on big brands, their brand building ability is also dependent upon the kind of budgets that were available, the kind of brand awareness that was already there in the market, that they had nothing to do with, right? So you have to be extremely sure what is your ability versus what the brand already had intrinsically built into it. Separate the two. It's very, very difficult to do that once you have 10 years in the industry. You seem to think, hey, all the goodness that came to this brand was because of me, right? So you need to be able to take that harsh look at yourself and say, okay, these are the fundamental things that I believe works for a brand. I can reapply those to this new brand, keeping in mind the budget and operational restrictions. The third thing that you will need to figure out is ways and means of work. Even if you are a marketer who has 15 years of experience or 10 years of experience in the industry, when you're going to shift to a place where I usually use this framework, you your boss is new, the brand is new, and the category is new. Right? This is a very dangerous combination to be. When you want to shift to a new career, try and keep at least one of these two variables safe. Work in the same category that you were working in, or work on the same brand in a different region, or try to see if your boss is the same. For instance, Vishal Bhatia, who was a leader at Reckitt UK headquarters, is the one who hired me to Reckitt. Coincidentally, he was also the one who hired me to Swiggy later on. He was the CEO of Swiggy's private brands and cloud kitchen division, what was called New Supplies division. And when he wanted someone to help him build the marketing team early on in the private brands division, he reached out to me, and that's how I shifted from CPG to internet marketing. There, I was fortunate because my boss was the same, one of the three variables. But if all the three variables are going to be different, then you will need time to make some mistakes and relearn some things because it's not going to be exactly the same. And your boss needs to be able to assimilate that fact, and in this case, it's usually the founder needs to be able to assimilate that fact and give you that little breathing space to make mistakes and learn, right? And that is extremely critical. So it needs to be a perfect working partnership between the two. What happens is prior to the person coming on board, the founder seems to the equation between that person and the founder is pretty much non-existent. How it develops over the first 2 3 months is going to dictate how their working relationship develops over the next 1 month, which is why you see CPG marketers who have put in 5 to 10 years of experience in often the same company, working on maybe one or two brands at best. The moment they leave that safe space, that jungle preserve, and go out into the city, their tenures, the average tenure as marketing leaders in startups or internet companies, reduced to 1.5 years, 2 years at best, and then shift, so on and so forth. This happens because of this working relationship issues more than say a funding problem or layoffs.
So tell me, somebody like who's probably starting out as a management trainee today,
Hmm.
uh, in 2024, like, or if Sandeep was starting out as a management trainee today in 2024, what would your mental model look like? What would you choose? What would you seek? And what would you experiment? Just help me understand that.
What would my mental model be for what specifically, for what goal?
For building a career, for building a marketing career, like just trying to increase the total intensity of experience per unit of time. So how would you
Yeah.
solve that?
So I typically keep five things in mind. One is I should be able to immediately put my existing knowledge to use to some extent. The second thing is I should be able to learn on the job and therefore grow much faster than I would have been had I not taken this job. The third thing is I should be able to network. I should be able to connect with my peers in the industry. I should be able to connect with seniors in the industry to learn from them and to expand my knowledge set. The fourth is I should have enough um, time left over to connect with my family and friends. I'm not talking about work life balance. I'm just saying enough time left over to connect with family and friends, and I should be able to make money while doing it. And there's a reason why I use this framework. Uh, in a large number of cases, marketers who have just graduated from colleges, whether they be from a normal engineering college or a commerce background or IIMs, they're often at the mercy of the boss who they are reporting to, because at least for the first 6 months to a year, you're going to be very, very tied at the hips to your boss because you're trying to learn the ropes. And if your boss is not a good teacher, then effectively a large amount of your early years are screwed up. Then you'll have to do a lot of rebuilding and unlearning to get onto the right path. And great bosses need not be great leaders. There's a big difference between the two. So being able to then learn by networking and connecting with others, seniors or other people in the organization is important. And very often, yes, it is the responsibility of the trainee or the associate brand manager to do it. But the company, startup also needs to have enough learning and development plans in place to help their new joinees do that. Because very often when you're starting out, everything is new. So you're not able to control a lot of the environment around. Being able to exercise whatever knowledge I have right now is very important because you need those early successes for you to feel confident in yourself. Once you have those early successes, things start moving much more fast. And The rest of the three, networking, friends and family, money, these are fairly selfish. But this is the mental model that I advise everyone who I refer to and who I work with to improve their marketing careers, because that's also something that I do on the side through Top Meet. This is the model that I advise them on, right? Because this is something that is so fundamental that you're not going to be able to easily forget it, but it's also super critical for you to be able to grow properly in that first few formative years of your career.
Hmm. I really love how thought through your answers are, Sandeep. I think the feeling that I get is that it's the distillation of having thought very deeply on these topics for a long period of time and then having iterated this model. So I feel that a lot of that intelligence and iteration in your thinking about solving problems is kind of coming through.
Thank
But
you.
I'll like one super selfish kind of question. So
Sure.
say somebody who's kind of mid senior, right? Like say myself, somebody who's between the 10 and 15-year kind of a bracket of doing marketing. If somebody like that feels stuck, that either you're not accelerating enough, either you have multiple paths in front of you and each of them have a shiny pot of gold with great work along the way, but they're competing challenges. So somebody who's in the middle, having been there, done that, what should that person kind of look for? And I'm sure it's going to be a very different mental model than the early career mental model that you explained. So tell me about that.
Surprisingly enough, the mental model doesn't change. Uh, but the way you evaluate your own personality through that mental model, the weightage that you give to each of these five things in that model, and the third thing is how you go about implementing that in the world. These three things change, right? Because if you're starting out, money is not a problem. If you're starting out, knowledge, experience are the two key things that you have to give weightage on. But when you're at a mid senior level, money is an issue. There is a limited amount of time left for you in your career to make enough money to live comfortably. Therefore, the priority of money becomes a big thing. Networking becomes a big thing because who you know and the context in which you know them matter. How people know you matter. Because now it's not just about the career, it's also about your legacy. You feel this need to start building that. Slowly at first, but you become aware of this concept of legacy. Uh, Therefore, the weightage that you give to different components of this mental model changes. Second thing that really changes is how you go about implementing it. Because, and my advice to mid senior level folks has always been start building a personal brand. Right? It's a mistake that I did. I didn't build a personal brand. At least I didn't consciously build a personal brand. Of course, your work talks for itself, and people start knowing you by your personality and your work. Whether you are a good human being, whether you are fun to work with, whether you do good work. Since it's a very close knit community, people tend to hear a lot about you if you're being solid enough. But going out and actively crafting that personal brand for yourself, using whatever platform you choose to do that, is extremely critical for mid to senior level folks today. And unfortunately, nearly 95% of them don't do that because of various reasons. I have coached startups where I sat with almost early stage startups at least, where I've sat with every single employee and advised them and gave them structures on how to build their personal brand. One of the biggest issues, other than of course the blank page syndrome, like I'm sitting in front of my laptop, I've got a blank Word document in front of me or a blank Google Doc in front of me. I do not know what to talk about. Is that there's that blank page syndrome. The other bit is at a mid senior level is probably when you are the most insecure in your career. Because when you're just starting out, you have nothing to lose, right? Nobody's going to take you to task if you say the wrong thing. At an extremely senior level, again, you have nothing much to lose because you have already made your point. Now, if you make one or two gaps along the way, it's okay. It's part of your quirky nature. You can write it off. But when you are in the middle, is when you are so afraid of making a wrong step that might ruin your career, your image, your legacy, the way people perceive you. And so, putting yourself out there in the world to build a personal brand at the mid senior level is such a uphill battle for many because it means For probably for the first time in their life, they'll have to make themselves vulnerable in public, right? But you have to overcome that. You have to build that personal brand. And the reason why you have to build that personal brand is at a mid-senior level, if you want to, if you have multiple options, right, in front of you, and you don't know which path to choose, very often it's far easier to let the market choose for you. So over a period of time, if you're building a personal brand, I have this thought that says, writing is a distilled form of thinking, right? The way you think, the way you subconsciously believe you should, live your life and make your career, will eventually come out through your writing over a period of time. And when you put it out there in public, the kind of people who see that get attracted to it and then come and connect with you are probably the right kind of people for you to work with over a period of time. So if you have five different career paths in front of you when you are, say, 40 years old, and only two of those career paths are where people are actually coming to you and saying, "Hey, can you help me with this? It seems like you know a lot about this particular subject, or what you're saying makes sense to me. Can we work together?" You realize, यार पांच मुझे लग रहा था कि मैं पांच टॉपिक्स में माहिर हूँ, बट ये दो टॉपिक्स के लोग मुझसे आके बात कर रहे हैं, मुझसे आके पूछ रहे हैं, बाकी तीनों लोगों को मुझे नहीं चाहिए, ऐसे सॉरी, बाकी तीन ग्रुप जो पास के लोग हैं, they don't really want me. So probably then, deprioritize those potential career paths. Focus on these. And that is why I say mid to senior level pay, building that personal brand is extremely important, because it will also act as a form of market validation for you, will help you reduce your choices, will help you decide between one or two choice, where your next 10 years of growth will come.
Yeah, double click on that a little, please, because I see that's advice which a lot of senior marketers are now giving people starting out, that you build your personal brand. Uh, because there's a lot of legacy folks which, like, even when you'll make the effort of being vulnerable and trying to build an audience on, say, LinkedIn, there'll
Hmm.
always be those naysayers and saying कि यार ये काम कब करता है, पूरे दिन LinkedIn पे post करता रहता है, right? मतलब and then
Yeah,
the other end of it would be like LinkedIn is cringe, and like
yeah.
there are people who are just talking about it on LinkedIn, and there are people who are actually doing the work. So there are all of these legacy perceptions also that
Hmm.
young marketers have to fight against, even when they know that kind of becoming a creator, if not a creator, but at least a person with a strong differentiated personal brand, so they see value in it. But sometimes the resistance of legacy voices is so hard that they're not able to de-link themselves. So what would be your, like, words of advice for those kids?
No, I mean, in this particular case, again, early stage marketers don't face this problem because, as I said, they have nothing to lose. The only issue with their case is they often go overboard. They are not able to control themselves. They are not able to control the quality of output that they put out. So very often you see people who have legitimately no business trying to make life-changing marketing decisions, saying so on LinkedIn, saying, "Hey, I have cracked marketing. I've cracked influencer marketing. I've cracked email marketing. Here's my playbook to do that." Right? Uh, people who have actually been in the business, people who understand these things, tend to ignore those kind of content, and that contributes to a large amount of the cringe content that you see on LinkedIn. Extremely senior folks uh, put stuff out on LinkedIn, but on a measured basis, and they are not often too worried about the outcome or the impact of it, so they don't really care. The mid-senior folks who face this tension between what happens to my legacy if I post this versus if I don't post this, again, what happens to my legacy is actually quite real. Um, I see the way I try to deal with it personally, in my case, right? Because I faced the same issue when I started out. It's been 18 months, I think, since I started posting fairly regularly on LinkedIn. Um, Initially, it was fine for me because no one was reading the stuff that I put up, right? I truly, honestly believe that because of the way you are trained in, say, PNG, because like everything that you say is measured, is evaluated, and forms part of how your boss and your boss's boss assesses you at the end of the year. So you become so self-conscious about stuff that you say that it took a long time for me personally to come out of that shell, put content out there, and not worry about who read it and who did it. And because I started from zero, more often than not, nobody read it, which actually gave me confidence to post again the next day and the day after that. And it continued for a period of time until people started reading what I was writing. But simply because of the discipline of having written and talked about stuff fairly consistently, by the time people started reading my stuff and actually responding to it and engaging with it, I had grown to a point where I was making less and less mistakes as compared to my earlier. So my advice to everyone at the mid senior level who thinks this, that क्या हो जाएगा अगर मैं कुछ लिखूंगा और वो गलत निकले, is relax. No one is reading your shit. No one is reading your shit. LinkedIn algorithm doesn't push your content to a lot of people if you are just starting out, because the algorithm doesn't know what your expertise is, whether you are a real expert or not, whether you will be able to add true value to the people who are reading your content or not. So it's not going to push it to a lot of people. Only very few people will actually see it. And if there's something egregiously wrong in that in what you have written, then those people who have read it will reach out to you and will tell you about it. If they don't, forget about that day, right? The next day and the day after. Eventually, by the time the platform algorithm wisens up to the fact that you are someone who is contributing regularly, just by the process of thinking through things on a daily basis, you would also have improved your writing style, your content, the takes that you have. So those two will catch up. And by the time it catches up, you'll be ready. So that's the only advice I can give. I mean, consistency in thinking, consistency in publishing is the only way you can overcome this fear that you might damage your legacy by writing and putting something out there.
I love that advice, Sandeep. Just closing out, I think we've got enough advice for early marketers. We've got enough advice for mid-career marketers. Just tell me about uh, your closing words of wisdom for founders looking to hire their first marketing person or looking to hire David and Who as a partner. How should they kind of separate great advice from shit? And how should they what's the mental model they need to have to separate signal from noise, because everybody's trying to sell to somebody who's got funding,
Yeah,
right? And everybody's trying to come in with a solution.
yeah,
So how do they figure out that, hey, this is the right person for me, this is the right agency partner for me?
yeah.
What would be a word of advice for founders who are listening in?
Great. There's two parts to that question, actually. The first part was, if you're going to hire a young marketer, what should you look for, right? For me, that answer is very simple: curiosity and the ability to write really well. Because as I said, writing is often a distilled form of thinking. And if you can think properly, you are someone who I will want to work with. Everything else is teachable, right? The attitude and the ability to think properly is not often very teachable. Everything else is teachable. But moving one step further, to then distill that thought into a really concise um, piece of writing. And by concise, I mean high signal to noise ratio, right? So ability to write, can distill that into a highly concise form of writing is super critical for a marketer, in my opinion. And being curious about it, being willing to learn, because as you said, everything in marketing changes every 18 months to 2 years. So it's not like I can hire someone who knows everything today and that person will be good for me for the next 5, 10 years. Okay. Constant upskilling is needed, and the only thing that drives constant upskilling is innate curiosity. So I'd look for these two traits in young marketers. As far as when it comes to David and Who, yes, there are a lot of agencies who are out there just to sort of funding chasers, like ambulance chasers. Google alerts for Series B, Series C racing PR notes out there. The moment someone raises money, DM them on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, congrats! Now we can work together." We don't do that. And for me, the best way for a founder to be able to evaluate an agency is to see if the people who are in that agency who you're working with, who you could potentially work with, do they actually listen to your brand story, your brand ethos, and what they want, what you want to do? And B, can they structure it into a narrative that will connect my brand with the consumer? For us, that's the crux of what we do at David and Who. We go into a brand, we talk to the founders and all the key stakeholders through day-long workshops. No mobile phones, nothing, no distractions, no emails. We just make it an insulated cabin where we talk about the brand, the business, its legacy, and where it plans to go for the next 5 years over a 2 to 3 day period. And we distill that business into a narrative, a strategic business narrative that can travel across the board, not just for your TV advertisements or communication, but how you talk to your employees, how you put out your PR releases, how you make your pitch decks, how you go and talk to the media, right? Everything will be an extension of the strategic business. That is the kind of effort that you need from an agency, especially from at the initial ground level, and not just someone who will come in and figure out another way to create a cool advertisement for you with people jumping off of rooftops or eating pills to become famous. So yes, those kind of work, advertising work has its own importance to some extent if you want to become famous as a brand.
Hmm.
Um to bring in Johnny Sins, to bring in a lot of other people who will come in and just by value of the shock that it
Hmm.
delivers to people, will let the Google trends on your brand go up for a day, and then it goes back down to where it was before. Or
Hmm.
you can fundamentally have a totem. That's what I call a totem. Is usually something that you can actually hold on to, right? It's a physical manifestation of your beliefs, and your strategic business narrative is your topic. It not just helps you if Johnny Sin's video is what comes out as one of the components of that, then so be it. Great. But that's
Hmm.
not the only purpose of it. You should be able to talk to your employees as well using this narrative, this totem. And this totem should work with you for your future funding efforts, for your organizational structure. How should your team be organized so that you can deliver the best? All of this comes from a single place, the strategic business narrative. Tracking that is very different from tracking a simple advertisement idea. And that's where David and Who comes in, and that's where I believe you as a founder should use as a decision making tool to evaluate an agency, especially in your early years.
I love all of your answers, Sandeep. The wisdom per the wisdom per unit of time is like super high and dense.
Awesome.
So for founders, kind of looking to kind of get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you? Do you what kind of clients do you take? Just plug in your stuff here. Do you do pro bono clients? Do you do pro bono work for like student startups or startups in the social sphere? Just let everybody know how and where they can get in touch with you.
Brilliant. So the easiest way to get in touch with me is LinkedIn. Just search for Sandeep Nair on LinkedIn, co-founder of David and Who. We have a website, davidandwho.com. It'll be great if we can plug that in as well. It's one of the better work that I think we have done building that website. The website
Sure.
has contact details in it. You can shoot in a message, and we will get back to you in 48 hours. But the fastest way to reach out to me still remains my LinkedIn direct messages. They're open all the time. I usually respond within the day. And yes, we are in a place where we are currently working with not just startups but also SMEs. One of the work that we did was for a UK-based startup who wanted to launch in India for a market entry work. We are working in the electric vehicle space with a client. Another potential client is a large-scale pharma company. So across the board, right? And the reason why it works out so well for us is because we work on the David mindset, and we believe that mindset can exist in a small company, a medium-sized company, or a large multinational. Right? Mindset is the same across the board. So that helps us work with people. We haven't really begun pro bono work now because we are uh, just 2 months old as a company. So we are still, we don't have funding. We are bootstrapped. So we are trying to figure out how best to set our systems and processes in place. But I have plans to start pro bono work within 6 to 8 months period. We also have in our long-term ambitious plan some thoughts about getting into the investment space as well, to as a way for us to use both money and our expertise to help new brands grow in India, especially.
Very cool, very cool. I think Spring does some amazing work on that front, and
Yeah,
they've kind of created a lot of value. So thank you, Sandeep. So, folks listening in, I'll drop in Sandeep's details again in the episode show notes. I'll also put in the contact, so please get in touch. And I can't wait enough. If you enjoyed this conversation as much as I have, just imagine if you're able to hire the team and kind of get them to work on your business problem. I'm sure the value that is created is going to be manifold. And yeah, Sandeep. So, in case you get some clients from Andrew's Banter, please make sure that he knows knows you got some, so
I
that he
will.
owes me a beer. Thank you so much.
I will. I will. I'll owe you a beer, man.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Thank you so much for your time, Sandeep, and lovely
Thank you.
finally being able to speak with you. And all the best on David and Who.
Thank you for inviting me, Hanika. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. I really enjoyed this conversation.